Good afternoon, everyone. I can tell from the looks on all of your faces that you're not here to see me. So the two men joining us today and kicking off our Lent term programme really don't need an introduction. So please join me in giving a warm, warm welcome to Mark and Stephen.
Just to warn you, I've given up speaking for Lent.
So we'll start by jumping in the deep end. I think this is a question on sort of everyone's lips at the moment. Season 5.
Of Open All Hours. Yeah. Talk about that for ages. Season 5 of Doctor Who. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. That was a long time ago. We're not lying. We don't know. We haven't even sat down and done any complicated graphs or sums yet. So we really don't know.
But we are sitting down now.
Yeah, we are sitting down now. But we don't know. Maybe. We haven't ruled it out. They're still in Baker Street solving crimes.
There's a huge problem with scheduling and getting Martin and Benedict's diaries to align. It was very hard to sort of schedule this last series and stuff. So we're genuinely not fibbing. It's just tough. But we're hopeful.
But yeah, keen.
We're nobody's against the idea. It just takes forever. It was, when we first got Benedict and Martin, no one had heard of them. It was brilliant. But then they became stars, and I was upset as anyone when that happened. And they wanted to go to proper jobs where they get paid. So, but they do. They have been very loyal. They keep coming back and working in a big shed in Wales. You don't get many film stars doing that.
It's true, so you get to take all the credit for that. Meteoric rise.
I did an interview for an Indian paper the other day, and of course, irony in what I might like to call twinkling does not translate on the phone across thousands of miles and slightly shouting down the phone. And I said, they were nothing when we found them. literally the headline. They were nothing.
That's a good point. Can we stress that we know Martin was very famous, though Benedict at that point was immensely famous in the industry. And people were spoken of as the next big thing, but nothing had clicked for him. So when we said his name to people just went, because it was such a silly name. It just went on forever. And he spent half an hour saying a name to a blank look.
So is Sherlock Holmes, to be frank.
Yeah. Sherlock Holmes completely unknown before we started. Again, irony.
So I don't know if you know this, but David Cameron went to China back in 2013. And
Who? I vaguely remember him when this country was still vaguely together.
Yeah.
And he... Well,
something in PR, isn't he?
Yeah.
Go on, yes, go on.
And he sort of opened himself up to questions from the Chinese public on their social media network, Weibo. And by far the most popular question was, can you please ask the crew to hurry up? To which he replied, well, we're actually not a communist dictatorial government, so we don't own everything. Not yet. I mean, when did you realise that Sherlock was going to blow up?
I think it was when we got that call from David Cameron, wasn't it?
Do you know what? He never came. He said he was going to go and talk to us. He told the Chinese, there's a lot of them, that he was going to go and talk to them about making more Sherlock. Never showed up. Never got not a peep out of him. He's busy watching Downton or something.
To be not facetious for a moment, which is very difficult. We had no idea it was going to be like this. I mean, we were very proud of it. We made essentially a pilot to start with, an hour-long pilot, which we were very pleased with. And then the BBC agreed to make it as a series if we did 90-minute episodes because of Wallander, because Wallander had been a success in that format. That's how it started. And but we were thrilled with it. But it was an overnight sensation and has only become exponentially bigger. And so it's amazing to even think that question could have been asked to the British Prime Minister, but they could have asked him a lot of other slightly more relevant things. But it's fantastic. It's humbling and thrilling and amazing. We're always saying this is a once in a career thing. These things just don't happen. It's just extraordinary how it's changed everybody's lives, really.
I mean, where did you
Not everybody. People are starving,
Where did you come up with the idea for it? I mean, where sort of that, because obviously it's like a joint sort of project.
Arthur Conan Doyle did.
Yeah.
Oh,
We ripped
really?
it off. Yeah. There was these little-known books. Well, does anyone here not know the story of us being on a train? We were on a train. We came up with the idea. I'm sorry, we told that story a million times. We can't tell it again.
We're going to
change it now.
We're going to start changing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We were in a police lineup. We originally did it as part of community service. It's actually more interesting.
Yeah.
Let's start saying that.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, so here we go again. We were on a train working on Doctor Who. We couldn't talk about Doctor Who because everyone came and listened to us. So we started talking about Sherlock Holmes, our other great obsession. We admitted falteringly and haltingly to each other that we really, really liked those Sherlock Holmes stories that were updated with Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce, where they fought the Nazis. We agreed that somebody should do that someday. And again, not particularly involving Nazis, though they're back, I noticed. And and I mentioned that one day to my wife, that we'd been talking about it, and Sue said, well, why don't you do it? And we did.
Hey!
Is that a record?
It's a full minute.
Yeah.
Without hesitation, deviation, or repetition.
And so, kind of moving from the conception to obviously like 4 seasons now, how do you still keep it fresh? How do you, what are you kind of, where do you get those ideas from and the process behind it? I mean, is it just, sit down at a table and sort of...
Well, we have a tremendous enthusiasm for the original stories, and we know the original stories really, really well. And while everybody in the whole world knows about the Hound of the Baskervilles and Professor Moriarty and Irene Adler and all the biggies in Sherlock Holmes, we know the other stuff. And there is so much humor, so many brilliant villains, so many clever twists, so many wonderful ideas and brilliant bits of writing in Doyle that people don't know about, that it's a treasure trove that we're raiding when it comes to making a new series. We say, for the most part, these stories are all too short to function as 90-minuters, but there are ideas in them that should be incredibly famous, but aren't. So it's a matter of choosing from this immense range. People don't say it often enough, because in a way Sherlock Holmes eclipsed him, but Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was an absolute genius. No one has ever written that kind of fiction as well as he has. He's simply the number one. And he doesn't, oddly enough, get the credit for it. No. He did become a millionaire, and he did make the most successful character in fiction, but apart from that, he was largely disregarded. And he introduced skiing to Switzerland as well, so come on.
He did everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always go back to Doyle, that's the thing. You just go back to the stories, and sometimes... What I've been doing recently is reading a lot of his other stuff, because he was so great, but also because you can hear his voice, it's a bit like finding a lost Sherlock Holmes story sometimes. And one of his horror stories, The Leather Funnel, it's a really horrible story, but very, very clever, and it's lovely to sort of discover just different aspects of him. But we always go, if we ever get stuck, go back to Doyle, and you'll find something, not necessarily a sort of solution to your problem of the day, but just some illuminating little line or idea. He was amazing. It's a shame he's dead.
So
but we get more of the credit because he's dead, so that's awesome. He's also, there's one of the things I think we've done well, I would say, which is not often done well, is the Sherlock Holmes stories are very funny. They are funny. They make you laugh when you read them. And Billy Wilder did that brilliantly with The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes. I think we do rather well with it too. It's funny. You're supposed to laugh. It's not heritage drama. It's not a stuffy period piece. It's entertaining, it's lurid, and it's funny.
And so, moving kind of from that, did you always want to go into writing, or was it something that sort of just, at school? Or
I wanted to be a pirate.
Well, I mean, the only ambition I have ever had was to be a writer. So yes, I always did. I think Mark's got more than one ambition. He's not
I want
only
to
one
be
of
president eternal and rule forever. No, same. I wanted to be a writer and an actor, and that's what I've managed to do. And the only other thing I ever wanted to do was be a paleontologist.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Whereas Peter Cook said I didn't have the Latin.
I feel
Or if
strangely
did anything
betrayed that you never told me that.
You don't know that?
You might branch out with one of your paleontologist friends, away on a train somewhere.
Okay, there's a whole separate conversation
Oh, I see.
on a train.
Now it comes up.
And did you write the character of Mycroft thinking, I'm going to play this character? Or was that sort of...
It's a slightly convoluted answer, this, because it started, Mycroft wasn't in the pilot, and our original intention was to introduce Moriarty sort of at the end of what would have been the first series, quite sort of slowly. And then when the BBC asked us to do 390s, we sort of realized that everything had to kind of pull up. So we introduced Moriarty in the first episode, etc. And we had this idea that if we made Mycroft, in fact, literally call himself his arch enemy, that people would fall for the idea that it was Moriarty, not Mycroft. And if I played it, people would assume I'd want to play Professor Moriarty. So that was part of it. And also, we'd started talking from the beginning about how, like Peter Mandelson, Mycroft would be as a sort of power behind the throne. And I just auditioned to play him in the Mo Molam film with Julie Walters. Didn't get it. But I played it later, so it was all right. And it's sort of, that's how it came about. So it was a kind of combination of those things.
It was Steve Thompson, in fact.
Yeah.
You'd just come back from the audition. You were talking about what you thought, how Mandelson would move and talk. And Steve Thompson, who wrote The Wrecking by Fall and The Blind Banker, said, you know what, you should play Mycroft like that. So that's where it comes from. And joined to the brilliant Christopher Lee version in The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes. It's really Billy Wilder and Izzy Diamond who introduced the idea of the combative, competitive, spiky relationship. It's actually quite warm relationship in the stories. So that we ripped our ideas off other people who are better than us. It's a very, very good technique.
But is it funny writing then a character who you play, because everything that happens to him, I mean, I guess when you're acting in a film where you're not writing your own character, you just take what you get and you sort of...
Well, I mean, sometimes it's a bit... we were watching episode 3 go out last week, and I realized in the scene at the beginning when I'm mouthing the words of the film noir that Mycroft's watching, that I'm mouthing dialogue I've written myself, for myself to laugh about. This is absolutely insane. This is insane. I've gone through the looking glass here. But no, because, I mean, I've always, with the League of Gentlemen onwards, I've always written for characters I often play, so it's not odd in that way. And it is also a huge time saver on the set. If I say, I don't think Mycroft would say this anymore. I think he might say this shorter sentence, which I am now finding easier to say. It's a great script editing tool.
And thinking about that episode, the kind of moral decisions, where did you get that idea? I mean, that was really tense, but also kind of, it was very Sherlock in the sense that you're really thinking about each of those decisions. I mean, where was the inspiration for that from?
It was sort of because we'd got a lot out of, which we had never intended to really, contrasting Sherlock and Mycroft, and realized that if you look at Sherlock from Mycroft's perspective, Sherlock is actually rather passionate, warm, and human, engaged. He's quite a different man, and Mycroft is cleverer but colder, which in the end is his undoing. So we thought, well, what if there's another one, and they're much cleverer and much colder? By the time we get to Eurus, she has no human engagement at all, but she's way cleverer than the other two. So it allowed us to do the sort of the end of Sherlock's origin story, which is in a way him understanding that his compassion, his wisdom, and his humanity are not weaknesses. They are what stopped him becoming as ineffective ultimately as Mycroft and as completely barking insane as Eurus.
But it's also we also wanted to have a very different kind of villain. We realized there was an earlier stage in the draft where Eurus was starting to talk like a baddie. Which is a great temptation. All baddies become arch and slightly James Bond villain-like, and we wanted to do something different. So she's actually quite clinical. She's like someone with a white coat looking at lab rats. So even the way she speaks is more sort of desiccated.
And I guess that relates to then the moral decisions that they had to make in each of those challenges. That she was seeing it very clearly in black and white, and as real humans in those situations, actually, they're almost far more difficult. I mean,
It'd make a marvelous game show, wouldn't it? I was thinking, just put a little clock in the corner.
Your brother or your friend?
I think we're about this far from it happening on Channel 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
but I mean, did that, the philosophy of that, did that come from, I mean, just interest or?
Well, it's an interesting thing. I mean, it's entertainment.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a sort of ambition with this episode to absolutely ratchet it up to the maximum. You know, there's something thrilling actually about writing a big finale. You go, right, from the get-go, we're just going to put our foot on the pedal and then find a way of just topping it constantly, because it doesn't happen very often. You can't do that every week, obviously, but at the same time, it was very exciting to do. It was like,
The word was, we kept saying transgressive.
Yeah.
Everything should be like we're breaking rules. Suddenly Mycroft's umbrella's a sword, and then it's a gun, and then we blow up Baker Street. So by the time you get to that, you think, what the hell are they going to do next? It's that for you. You could not, as you say, do it every week, and you couldn't do it every finale. But just that sense of, oh dear God, all bets are off, and that sort of extremity. The amount of plot we get through in that, maybe too much for some people, but it was, I think, great fun. I loved it.
Can you tell us about any ideas, I don't know if you will be able to, that didn't make it into an episode?
Oh, well, the trouble is, I mean, yes, but quite often ideas we don't make into episodes make it somewhere else.
Yeah.
So
No.
you know, if there is a series 5, we might well use some of them. There are stories. Mark's always wanted to do the Red-Headed League. I don't know why. And there's an idea I was just having on the train that I suddenly thought would be quite, from the originals.
always trains.
Always
Why did we
trains.
do one on a train? What were we thinking about?
That's right. It's the train of terror by night.
And if you could play any character,
That's a big if, because I couldn't.
if you had to, who would you, do you think?
Somebody with no lines who remains out of sight.
That was a cut. That was one of Euros's cut challenges. Was that Stephen had to play a character in the corner.
Oh no! No,
You have 3 minutes.
I'm so monstrously untalented as an actor. I once had to act. Peter Davison made a little thing called the Five-ish Doctors for the 50th anniversary Doctor, and I had to play myself, a part that surprisingly enough to prove to be out of my range. And I hated it. I hated the whole process. I hated having. I tried to learn my lines. I couldn't remember them. I had to go around with the clipboard reading them out. No, there's no part that I would want to play.
Okay, sorry for asking. So, just looking at sort of the kind of Twitter reception, obsession, I don't know what you'd call it. Why do you think that increasingly it seems, and I mean not just Sherlock, but many TV shows, increasingly under scrutiny in that kind of light, in a kind of, I would describe it as madness, on social media? I mean, why do you think that this is something that's sort of become so?
Well, it's a symptom of the age we live in. Of course, it is. Social media is a huge double-edged sword. I think everybody realizes that. Information has never been more widely available, but people have never seemed more stupid. And it's a terrifying mixture of things. There's so much amazing possibility in that, but it's already becoming a tool of fascism. It's frightening how easily manipulated we are, and how much Orwell was right about everything. He should have it on the gravestone. I told you so. And his latest prediction, which is we have always been at war with East Asia, etc., is fake news. That's what it is. And I think so. That's a more general point about social media. But I think what's happening is there's a kind of amazing polarity. There are no shades of grey except 50. In the argument, you're either with us or against us. You're right, you're wrong, and there's a massive sort of shrill fury on sides. There's no debate. Here we are defending free speech since 1815. It should be about debating and not saying you if you're not with us, you're against us. And I think that's the danger with it all. Well, I was talking to David Arnold the other day, our composer, who had this very interesting theory that maybe we're all feeling so powerless about the state of the world that there's a sort of sublimation of that into people getting very, very vociferous and angry about things they feel they do have some control about. And that might be, a book, a film, a TV series. So that maybe there's something in that people actually get slightly disproportionately furious about something that doesn't really matter that much.
And is it possible that because I think on the positive side of this, I think people are in effect talking about a television program as it goes out. But it's because it's a very, very big conversation with lots of voices. I think there is a certainty, not a danger, a certainty that people sometimes take positions that they don't believe in. They just think that will make me noticed if I say that. It's this isn't me being accusing or judgmental of that. We all do that in the pub. We all say ridiculous things because we want to cause because we want the conversation to be funny or outrageous, and you want to cut through. Sitting there being relentlessly reasonable, medium, and decent isn't really very interesting. You've got to say, well, of course, I don't think good people really are good, I mean, you're just going to see something outrageous.
In a Victorian voice.
Yes, well.
From his wing-back leather chair.
It's getting to me. It's starting.
There'll be a headline tomorrow. The internet is a big pub, says Moffat.
Oh, God. Well, but it is, though, isn't it? No, maybe it's not.
Is it difficult, though, sort of, because when you do put together a show like Sherlock, and it's sort of so much time and so much love and energy is invested into it, and then it is sort of open to the public and the reviews and everything, is that a very difficult thing to do?
And what do we get in return for it? Paid. It's fine. We have to put up with, sometimes people are a bit, I don't think it's a good thing. I don't think it's a positive thing or a positive side of humanity that sometimes people are exceptionally mean about human beings who make a TV show. I don't think that's a good thing. I don't think it's the worst thing that ever happened. It's kind of fine. We are all guilty of being mean about people we don't actually stand in front of. Most of us are human enough that if we meet the hurtable gaze of another person, we refine and moderate our behavior to accommodate their feelings and their right to courtesy and respect. That's a good thing about us. The fact is, because when you take away that reality, you suddenly find a limitless capacity for being horrible that you don't have in real life. So I don't know if it's symptomatic of us all being evil or anything. I think it's symptomatic that anonymity and the concealed face of the person you're pretending to hate makes certain things possible. It's probably all fine, and as I say, we're paid.
Sticking your head above the parapet, but then you're doing that when you make anything, and that's the point of doing it. If you can't stand it, then you can't do it. And it's
That's a good idea. Brilliant.
It's not pleasant if people are horrible about you, but at the same time, it's like reading reviews. The good ones don't help, and the bad ones stay with you forever. And you just have to rise above it.
And would you have any advice for sort of budding creatives and...
Stop now.
No?
Wait until somebody dies. Show some respect. Yes. It's the most boring advice in the world, and it's the one I try to impart to my children all the time. There is no such thing as talent.
Wash.
Yes, wash. I didn't say that to you, by the way. You are all exceptionally clean, I can tell that, and much cleverer than me, because you're at this university. There's a thing about creativity that people think it's about inspiration or talent or opportunity. It's not. There's no such thing as a talent for writing. Why would anyone bother to have that? Why would nature have favored it? It's all about working harder than other people. Working harder than other people is the cheat code of the universe. It really is. If you can sneak ahead of other human beings and take advantage of them by working harder than them. Everything about writing, which is the thing about which I am most passionate, everything about it is achievable through working harder than other people. It's just that. If you really, really want to do that, work your arse off and it will work out for you. It's an achievable skill. It is entirely learnable. The good news is it's achievable. The bad news is it's way harder than people think it is. And if you sit around saying, I'm waiting for inspiration, screw you, frankly. I mean, that's not how it works. So that advice, just work harder.
And what do you think is the future of production? Because obviously we've seen a big change in terms of looking to Netflix and online providers, and the BBC itself is struggling in some ways.
Well, it's fascinating. It's a little alarming for those of us from an analog generation, and how swiftly it's moving. But it's so exciting. I mean, everything's changed in 5 years, and then another 5-10 years, it'll be unrecognizable. We are passing the point at which people will understand the notion of looking into a television in the corner of the room and not expecting to get their favorite show immediately, all 12 episodes or something, on a tablet. And that's, why would you wait? Why? So it's amazing, the speed of change. But we all have to kind of accommodate that. Everybody has to wake up to the fact that overnight ratings don't mean anything anymore, because everybody watches TV in a different way. That the big broadcasters are not the only show in town anymore, and other places are extremely attractive for all kinds of reasons. So, and we were talking about this earlier, that the film industry, which used to be seen as the step up, is now looking like, why would you bother? You can go to high-end television and find the biggest movie stars in the world desperately wanting to do really interesting TV, because that's where it's at. So. And that's only today. That's this month's headline. Yeah. So you just don't know how it's going to change, but it's very exciting.
So it's just something that you have to embrace. It's not sort of.
I think it's going to be good. I think it's in the end it puts the focus on the program, which I think is good. I think it's going to. Of course, it's going to change the way we watch television. This idea of releasing a show all at once, that may seem extraordinary to us, but if you read a Dickens novel, you are binge viewing. He published them, a chapter a month. I mean, in a magazine. It's the way we choose to watch. It's going to be what is particularly clever about letting your television tell you when you can watch it. You don't let your bookcase dictate when you can read. I think.
But you will soon, because they'll be talking soon.
They'll be talking bookcases.
I was watching The Crown, and I found this out the back of my mind, thinking, when's this on? Oh, it's not. Oh no, it is. It's just always on. It's so strange. And they had, I was talking to someone who was one of the execs on it, and it was like they had the weekend it was sort of on was it, and they had to get everything into that launch and all the response and everything, because people could literally sit down and watch all the episodes in one day if they chose to, and that's a massive sea change in thinking. But obviously, the people who grow up with that won't ever think of it like that. And then things will be beamed directly into your eye, and then we'll all be.
Or just into your memory, just like that. Yeah.
Yes.
It's over.
It still won't be as good as it used to be.
It won't be. Oh, I was preemptively disappointed by that.
I thought we'd play a little game. One of the stewards has.
Oh no!
Is it twisting?
If you want to.
Does it involve standing? No, that's good.
Well, do you want to stand? You can stand if you want.
All right, what is it?
So the way this is going to work is I'll ask a question
Having
and
lunch?
then. Sorry?
Having lunch.
And then you both write down.
Oh, is that Mr. and Mrs.?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if anyone has any good questions, feel free to chip in. So the first question: if you could have written any TV show, what would be the one that you'd wish you'd written?
Are we guessing for each other? Yes.
Oh, are we guessing for each other? I've got to guess what he wants.
Yeah.
All right. What would he like?
Sorry, that's a bit of a difficult question to start with.
I'm just sniffing the pen. Okay.
I don't know what you'd have written. I don't clue. Have you got one for me?
Yeah.
You thought of what I would like to write. I wasn't even that sure. Oh no.
I'm just going to draw a picture. Okay.
Okay. So, what do you think?
I don't know, so I just said Love Boat. I thought that would be...
Correct.
Stephen?
That's what I wrote for myself. Columbo.
So-
Yeah, I would like.
That's what
What would you? What,
oh, God.
I don't know.
God.
You see, you're difficult. I'm
gone.
easy.
I got blank.
If you could eat one food for the rest of your life,
Oh, right. Okay.
sorry, I'll read them out. I think probably some people can't see what's on the.
Yeah, go on.
Okay.
Yes! Great. I was just going to put for Stephen, nothing green.
If you could take one thing to a desert island, what would it be?
Yes, correct.
Name of Mark's dog.
Oh.
So
Probably-
poor Ian, really, under
Probably Ian
circumstances. Can Ian not see this?
You know, we were all really sad that he didn't decide to come today.
Nearly brought him.
What is your favourite episode of Sherlock that you've made together?
His favourite.
But yeah. Is that right?
Well,
So it's the final problem and a scandaling Belgravia for people who couldn't read that. And what's your most annoying habit?
what he thinks is my most annoying habit.
Uh,
Is that what I'm doing? Or am I thinking about his most annoying habit?
I've forgotten the rules.
Yeah. I don't know whose annoying habit I'm doing.
maybe do the other person's most annoying.
Mark's most annoying habit.
Is that a bit mean?
No, it's just the bewildering array. I mean,
Yeah?
I haven't looked yet, Mark, but I've got a horrible feeling.
It's kind, it's nice.
Who is your childhood hero?
Oh. Right, for each other, I can't remember. Ah, yes.
Mm.
Hey!
Aw.
Tom Baker's 83 today, everybody. Happy birthday, Tom.
Hidden talent?
God, this is going on. Round 18. Hidden talent.
Yeah. Not sure this is a hidden talent, but there we go. Yeah, very funny.
Okay, so now we're going to open up to questions from
Oh,
the
thank
floor.
God.
Oh, Jesus. Now that our friendship is irrevocably destroyed.
Questions from the floor. So if you have a question, put your hand up and a steward will bring a microphone.
Remember our hurtable gazes, is all I'd say to you.
First of all, big fan of what you've done on Doctor Who and Sherlock. Second of all, how did you get the idea? Because Sherlock has a pretty unique way of sort of displaying how Sherlock thinks and
There are
assesses.
no gradations of uniqueness.
I mean, but I can stop the
I've
question
got
right
a new
now if you
idea
want.
for his most irritating habit. Sorry.
Sorry, go on.
But
I
what
apologise
was
for
the
him.
inspiration of him, the unique way that he processes thoughts, sort of ideas zipping around
On the screen.
Yeah, and he comes up with all these sort of logical leaps. Do you come up with those and then build a story around them, or vice versa?
To say the second one first, a bit of both. I mean, the deductions are really, really hard, if that's what you mean. The deductions are properly hard, so we all think of them. Sue came up with one about how to deduce that someone was left-handed from walking around their flat, and all about where, which plug socket you used, and so we used that in the blind banker. The first one is the floating text on screen. In the very first episode we shot after the pilot was Mark's episode, The Great Game. There were a lot of texts in it. Paul McGuigan didn't like the idea of shooting lots of close-ups of a phone.
First director.
Yeah, first director. He didn't like the idea of putting shots of close-ups of a phone because it's boring. So he said he was going to put the text on screen, which I thought sounded awful. But then I walked past the cutting room and thought it looked great. I was still writing A Study in Pink, so I put that idea into the script, and we did more of it. We did him actually having a heads-up display. Sometimes you saw his thoughts and his ideas and so on. So it developed that way, originated by Paul McGuigan, and developed a bit as we've gone on. And there's been some brilliant Mickey takes of it from other people, some very, very funny ones.
It does, I mean, if you see a cutaway of a phone now, it looks so old-fashioned. I think if we've done anything, and that's Paul's idea, it's to get rid of that awkward cutaway. Usually someone else's hand holding a phone like that. It's amazing, isn't it? It seems like the logical thing to do. So.
Okay, thank you.
Again, a huge fan of Doctor Who and Sherlock.
Few.
I'm just curious, so as writers, how is your day structured? Do you just think of ideas and write them whenever you think of them, or do you have a set time during each day where you just jump on a train and start writing? How does it work?
It has to be involved with a train. Do you know, it's no joke, I was just walking past an estate agent last night, and I looked at these harassed people just about to knock off work, and I thought, Jesus, I'm very lucky. Don't have to do that. I don't have to sit there being horrible down the phone all day. And so, to answer your question, it's an unstructured thing. And I personally, I always write better in the mornings. But the best thing I can do is have what we're always desperate for is a clear day, a day when you actually just realize that there's nothing else. You can just sort of plow through, and if it's all working, I can get more done in like one day, absolutely straight through, than if I do like 2 or 3 hours a day for a week sometimes, There's no real structure.
But the structure is write every day if you can. I mean, that's it. You can't wait for inspiration, because inspiration will never arrive at all, actually, in my case, but as frequently as you need, given the deadlines. So you just try and force yourself. But as Mark says, sometimes on a particular day, you do 2 weeks' work. Then you do spend 2 weeks doing nothing at all.
Those are good days.
Yeah, those are good days. Very rare.
Yep. Over there.
Did you miss me?
Yes. Absolutely.
You
Where
never
have you been?
call. You never call.
Is there a reason why...
And now it's in front of everybody, right? Humiliating us.
Is there a reason why you haven't sort of built more upon the idea of Irene Adler and a love interest for Sherlock?
Irene Adler and, well...
Apart from the odd text.
The odd text, well, that's quite major in Sherlock's case, isn't it? I was shocked when that happened. It's not a proper love story, is it? I mean, they're more like two exotic predators prowling round each other, paying each other professional courtesy. They would never do anything as ordinary, I think, as pop to the sofa for a cuddle. They'd rob a bank or steal some horses or something like that if they spent a night
Series
together.
5.
Yeah. They're not, but they're not like us. It's not, if they met up, they'd do something explosive and extraordinary. It wouldn't be human like that, like the things that we do.
There's also, genuinely, there is a law of diminishing returns. I mean, that Scandal in Belgravia is my favorite episode. I think it's kind of just perfect. I love it. And if you were to have a return of Irene Adler, you have to think of a very good reason for having her back again. So it obviously doesn't rule it out, but it needs to be something pretty special, I think. So that's really it.
I like the idea that they meet up in High Wycombe in a harvester. I think that's quite fun.
As long as they're stealing horses.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other side? Yep. Oh.
Particularly with Doctor Who, but also with Sherlock, how do you deal now with the competing audiences of the UK audience that you originally were supposed to be catering for with the BBC, but also with the huge international following distributed by BBC Worldwide, but particularly as the UK audience possibly in the future begins to drop, does that affect how you write in any way?
First of all, let's just get this out of the way. It's not dropping.
No.
What they do is they compare the overnights to the consolidated.
No, I know that,
so
but
it's
in...
not. No. I just have to say it every time, otherwise I'll get quoted about me talking about dropping audience. They ain't. But the other thing is, how do I deal with the UK audience versus the rest of the world? Very, very simply. We absolutely ignore the rest of the world. Right? That's what we do. Because what people want is Doctor Who. What people want is Sherlock. They don't want the version that we think they want. If you're an American or if you're a Chinese person watching Sherlock or Doctor Who, you want the British version. You want it to be our version. So that's what you do. You don't patronize people by pretending you know what they want, especially if you've never met them. So we just make the show. We ignore them. In fact, we make the show for ourselves. But the UK audience for both shows is absolutely paramount. And you would not find anyone who watches the show in the rest of the world disagreeing with that. That's how it works.
People often ask us, we want to film abroad, and of course we'd love to. Mostly just to go and do the recce.
Yeah.
But the fact is, if you take it out of its context, it stops becoming. I mean, it's, again, not impossible, but it tends to be how things go awry when you suddenly take your characters out of their familiar environments and everything that people love about the show or the film, and put them somewhere else just for the sake of visiting a country. Then it tends to fall apart, really. I'm missing this side.
Yeah, we should.
Sorry. So just one question about where you get your inspiration from. I mean, obviously, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, but also if you look at other sort of detective fiction, sort of greats like Agatha Christie, for example, to kind of bring in additional elements into your writing.
Oh, well, we love all detectives, really. I mean, there's so many forgotten ones I'm always trying to sort of bring out of the darkness. There was a wonderful detective, a blind detective called Max Carados, and there's in the golden age of detection in the 20s and 30s and 40s, everybody was writing detective stories, and a lot of great writers. Graham Greene, there's a letter on file. Graham Greene wrote to Agatha Christie asking if he could buy ideas off her, because she had so many. She had like an idea every day before breakfast, and he was desperately, he was having one of those moments, he couldn't think of a thing. So, I mean, it's in a way it's true, we sort of, but not in a direct way. Like, it was a lost Lord Peter Wimsey story or something we could use. It's just that, it's the general sense of that kind of flavour. And also, of course, because every single detective ever written since Sherlock Holmes is indebted to Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. And that's, so everyone is really going back to the same wellspring in the end, no matter what they do, Agatha Christie almost literally drew lines from Holmes to create Poirot. Went tall to short, English to foreign, little grey cells instead of deduction, all these things. And it's, but all the best detective writers have always massively acknowledged the huge debt they owe to Conan Doyle. So you kind of just come back round anyway, really.
Yeah, okay.
Do you ever watch Primeval or Elementary and just laugh?
No comment. I tell you a story about Primeval, which is not anymore, is it? But one of the things I really loved about that show, and I did, was that I didn't have any stake in it. We're not alone, as with Sherlock and Doctor Who. The actual moment of transmission is horrible. Rather look forward to it being off the air, which is insane. Yeah. Because it's just, there's so much scrutiny and so much sort of emotional turmoil. And Primeval was a lovely show about dinosaurs. And it was just great fun. And I used to just watch it because I wasn't worried about it. And so I rather miss Primeval.
I haven't. I've seen a little of Primeval, which I thought looked excellent. Actually, I thought it looked very, very good. For obvious reasons, we can't watch Elementary. We can't. So I don't know what it's like. But the trouble with making shows, and as Mark says, the agony of watching shows being transmitted, I know lots of people are having the wrong opinions about them, is such that I can't ever take pleasure in if I watch a show and I think it's failing. I've done that too often in my life to take pleasure in somebody else screwing up. I just think, oh no, it's awful, it's painful. And I remember all the extraordinary number of times I've completely made an arse of myself in public. I feel common feeling with them if I don't think it's good. I certainly don't laugh at other people's failures. I've had that laughter ringing my ear quite often enough, and it is not a friendly sound.
However, no.
Hi. So I remember reading that some of the aspects of the original Sherlock character were sort of reflections of Conan Doyle's own life and people in his life. And so I wonder whether in your writing you feel that any of your characters or even just aspects of the story are autobiographical in certain ways.
Well, I think in your writing generally, I think it was Tom Stoppard who said that writers are like people who are stopped at an airport and have their bags searched, and the customs officials find all this stuff inside the suitcase that they didn't expect to be in there. And I think you realize when you think, oh, I've done that before, or that's a sort of tick, or that's a bit of a preoccupation I didn't realize I had. But in terms of Sherlock, I don't know. I suppose it's the sort of stories you tell, I guess, and the...
I mean, the stories there are, the characters of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, they're so clear, simple, and vivid in the original that it doesn't feel like there's room for us to put another thought on top of that. So I don't think there's much. I mean, anything you do that is truly autobiographical, you did it by mistake and by accident, and other people will notice that you don't do it yourself. You don't ever think, I need to bring something of myself to this, because why? No one gives a toss about
Except for having an umbrella with a sword in it.
Yeah, that was true. Yeah. Pure indulgence.
I did actually, it's a true story. I bought a cane about 10 years ago for something I won't talk about. And I went to James Smith and
What
Son.
a night.
James Smith and Son of Tottenham Court Road, the oldest umbrella manufacturer in the land. It's an amazing shop. I've never been. It's amazing.
Of course.
It hasn't changed at all. But on the winners outside, it still has its original Victorian lettering. It says sword sticks, dagger canes, all these wonderful things. And I went in to buy this cane, and I said to the man, "Do you still?" He said, "No." And he knew exactly what I was going to ask, because obviously people always ask. He said, "No, I'm afraid not. So health and safety."
Yeah, down here.
This is basically just a question for Mark. I apologise, Stephen.
No, that's
But
all right.
your mention of the League of Gentlemen quite excited me because I'm quite a kind of recent convert to it. But it made me wonder whether you preferred acting or directing, whether you liked them equally and why.
Acting or directing? Or writing?
Yeah, or writing rather.
Writing. Oh no, I mean, I'm very privileged to be allowed to do both things, and as I say, that's what I always wanted to do. So, what I like personally is in a year is if it's a nice mixture of stuff, and if you've been stuck behind a desk for a long time, and then you go and start rehearsing a play or something, it's lovely because you suddenly meet loads of new people and gets you out of the house, which I'm increasingly loath to do. So yeah, it's nice to have a balance, really.
Just up top.
So quiet. Everyone's very polite.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm a big fan. I was just wondering how you'd respond to a conversation I had in the pub the other day about Sherlock, where...
Were you drunk?
No.
Then what's the
where
point of
it
going to the pub?
came up, where somebody claimed that all the women in the show are either talked down to or killed, and I was just wondering if how you would
Mrs.
respond to
Hudson
that extreme
is definitely alive, and
statement.
no one dares talk down to her except Mycroft once, and he got told off for it. I don't think it's true. is what I'd say. I don't think it's true. I think you couldn't sustain that as an argument. I would just keep coming up with people that's not true. It's not true. I mean, who talked down to Irene Adler? Everyone was in terror of her.
I was just talking about this earlier as well, though. I do think that one of the, and it's the price of success, really. The show has become such a phenomenal success, and it's just one of those things. It's just happened. It's just luck that everything kind of came together. But you do end up becoming this sort of prism through which people see absolutely everything. Now, across the board, when you're working under extreme pressure to produce something, hopefully to the best of your abilities, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody wishes they'd done something slightly different. Everybody wishes they could do better in so many areas of representation. But one of the problems with Sherlock's success is that, and it's a good problem to have, is that you become, I think, scrutinized in a slightly unfair way. People don't ask these questions about a lot of other things. So we're all always aware of trying to do our best in so many ways, but fundamentally we're trying to create an exciting television program and not just tick boxes and try and please all the people all the time, because it's absolutely impossible. And I think what you'd end up with is a very bland program, which absolutely nothing happened. And ultimately, I think it's a reductive argument, because you're not trying to dismiss how people feel about issues that are very important to them, or issues that are globally important. I'm going on the Women's March tomorrow because I think it's an important time to stand up against the terrifying growing spectre of intolerance and fascism which is taking over the whole world. And that's just a general desire to do something better, do something good. Now, everybody falls down, makes mistakes at some point, but all I can say is we're trying to make a good television program, and we're doing our best.
Might I also observe that you might, if you don't like shows where people get talked down to and murdered, maybe Sherlock isn't for you. It's about a patronizing man who solves murders.
We have time for one last question.
Oh, no.
So make it a good one. Should we go front row here?
This is always the killer question.
It's always going to be, isn't it? Make it nice.
So in China, as you're aware, Sherlock and Watson are called Curly Foo and Peanut, which is adorable. We're wondering if Mycroft has his own nickname, and if he doesn't, what would you want Mycroft's Chinese nickname
I don't
to
speak
be?
Mandarin. I don't know.
It's all right. Peanut's an English word.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, I was channeling Sherlock.
Oh, it's all turning nasty now, Mark.
How quickly they change.
Yeah, if you'd just been able to speak damned Mandarin.
What would Mycroft's nickname be? Oh, my God. Well, we've always done a variation of Antarctica, Iceman, all these. There's something icy about him, obviously, so possibly Slush Puppy.
Mark.
And on that bombshell.
Mark, Stephen, thank you so much for coming. It's been an absolute pleasure. If you'd all join me in giving you a warm thank you to.
Thank you.